Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us. My name is Juan Garcia. I am the Senior Landscape Water Efficiency Specialist with the district, and welcome to our IRWD RightScape webinar series. Today's workshop is going to be Plant Like a Local. Fun class today. There's quite a bit of material to get through. There's been some questions in regards to the presentation. It will be online. All our presentations are recorded and you can all view them online, especially any classes that you might have missed. If you go to our events page, there is a link there, but I will show you guys anyways, all these links. Let's see, we still have more people trickling in, but this is great to see. So be patient with us. And we'll slowly get started. We do have some staff members, Joey Bacariso and Melody C. Sangret, working with us right now. So also, if you are having any kind of issues, well, let me just get to that slide right now. Of course, is Plant Like a Local. So a little bit of webinar housekeeping. Please keep your microphones muted. That would help us all out. Submit all your questions or any questions you might have via the chat feature. So if you can look for the chat feature, that would be great. If you are on your phones, it's a little bit different, and especially if you're on a different device, such as a tablet. But just look for that little symbol for chat or any of the options you might have. And please submit those questions via chat. If we do have enough time, towards the end of the class, I'll be answering some questions. But depending on how many questions we do get, we might not be able to get through all of them. But once again, I will make sure to address any questions that is submitted via chat, and I do answer them. And after the workshop, I'm going to be creating a slide handout, providing all the answers to the that were submitted via chat, and any kind of other important information I'll be emailing everybody. And once again, this will be recorded and available for everybody. If you do have any issues, we do have a webinar hotline available. It is 949-453-5656, as you can see there on the screen. So you're able to chat with somebody in case you're having any kind of issues or anything. Let's see. So hopefully I sound good to everybody, and hope you enjoy this presentation as I talking about plants. Right now it is the perfect time to start looking at plant material and considering what we're going to be doing out into our landscape. So let's see, let's get started here. So today's workshop, here's a little bit the agenda of what we're going to talk about. Create a beautiful landscape. That's the ultimate goal, is to create a beautiful landscape that not only looks fabulous, but also requires very little water, or it's just a small amount of water in general. It's important, of course, our landscapes require water at different times of the year, but it's important to consider that and how much water they actually need, and to use it as best as possible, and to be conservative and efficient with our water use. We're going to look at the different purposes of landscape. What are we looking for when we're looking at our landscape as far as usage goes? Plant characteristics, creating your plant list. One thing is, since today is Plant Like a Local, yes, I do have great plant palettes for you, and the palettes and the plants that I chose are plants that are easy to find in our areas, which is great. We're going to look at some lawn substitutes, because sometimes I just get somebody that's asking, can I replace my lawn with something else that kind of gives me that appearance and uses less water? And the answer is yes, there's great stuff out there. And we're going to be going online and looking at different resources for plant material and so forth. And then, I'm going to concentrate a little on California native plants, and we'll talk about that. Sometimes, we say California native plants, and the ideas come out that it might be just cactuses and sticks and stuff like that. But we're talking about California plants, and what a vast number of plants we have, and everything from desert plants, coastal plants, everything you can imagine. We can have a vibrant green flowering garden year round with very little water. So we're talking about water and landscapes. once again, the idea of any of these workshops is to create a beautiful landscape, try to make it as sustainable as possible. And you know, I love seeing this picture here. It's in flowering. It looks great. I can tell that it's very low water use. I see the nice little stormwater feature there. Just things to consider in general. So, you know, when we talk about landscapes, you know, the ultimate goal is to try to reduce the amount of water our landscapes need. You know, typically, I think on average, 50 to 70% of homeowners' water of your water use goes outside to the landscape, and then a lot of that water that gets put outside, sometimes it's wasted, runoff. It's put out there in inefficient manners. You know, that goes more towards the sprinkler system and stuff like that sometimes. But those are things that we always got to consider. How much water does our landscape need? How much water can it take? How much can we give it just to make it look nice? You know, consider converting to climate appropriate plants. We're talking about, that's a very key thing for today's topic, is climate appropriate. You know, we have a beautiful climate here in Southern California, and we can have plants from all around the world that are adapted here, that are adapted to our climate, but we also have our beautiful California native plants. So there is a difference when we talk about California native and non-native climate appropriate plants from all around the world. And more decorative permeable hardscapes. And that key word there is permeable. You know, it's great to have hardscapes, you know, walkways and so forth, and try to make them permeable, allow that water to get through that area into the ground, and, you know, have our ground filter out that water and get it back into our water systems. Wow, look at these numbers, you guys. So we're going to look at water use. So a typical grass area, we're talking like a tall fescue, marathon area, for every 1,000 square feet of, you know, tall fescue grass that we have out there per year, you're going to it consumes around 25,000 to 35,000 gallons of water. That's a lot of water. You know, once we start getting into those summer months, you know, once it starts to heat up, you know, we can be using as much as 4,000 gallons a month for just you know, that little 1,000 square feet of grass. So it's a lot of water, and these numbers are right around what you're going to use, you know, plus give or take a little bit, but you know, it's kind of on average. Now take that 1,000 square feet of landscaping and convert it to a tolerant or climate appropriate landscape. Your water savings is around 30 to 50%. So now that same 1,000 square feet will only require around 15 to 20,000 gallons per year of water. And in the summer months, or that hot time, you know, once spring hits into the summer months, we're talking about 2,500 plus or minus gallons. So you can see the reduction is quite a bit. Now we started moving into lower water use plants. You know, we start getting down to the 60 to 80% as far as water savings. It's just a lot of water savings when it comes to you know, choosing lower water use plants. So 4,000 to 12,000 gallons per year, right around 1,500 gallons per month during the summer peak. Now, this is talking about climate appropriate plants or non-native plant species. Now, when we start getting into our natives, this is where, you know, this is where the magic begins, basically. You know, our California natives, you know, about 80% plus water savings because they require water at different times of year. During, you know, the water use is starting to pick up, you know, during the cooler months, you know, and the benefit of bringing in California native plants, you know, we do actually start to create our little habitats for our local fauna, whether it be insects, birds, everything, pollinators in general. You know, fully or partially summer dormant. That's great to hear about California native plants. Is once again, they're adapted to our beautiful state climate, and they know when it starts to get warmer in those warmer months, they start to slow down as far as water use goes. And once they're established, they require little or no water, supplemental water, once they are established. And once again, you can have a beautiful, beautiful green garden throughout the year with very, very little water use, which also depends on what you choose to put out there. Now, before we start getting into, you know, the plant material and everything, you know, it's always a little things. You know, what do we want to use the landscape? What's the purpose of our landscape? You know, who has pets out there? We know what sometimes large pets can do to landscapes. We always got to think about the small things that we need: recreational areas, play areas, aesthetics. You know, you want to things to look nice, of course, for your home. You want the landscape to showcase your home. So, what you want areas that draws attention and beauty, aesthetics plays a big deal with landscapes. I would think, when you look at more traditional landscaping, but this can be done with, with not only hardscape, but of course, I mean, not only with plant material, but also with the hardscape. Relaxation, having water effects, the water effect you saw earlier on the previous screen, any kind of water feature is going to evaporate water. It's going to evaporate quite a bit of water. But if you like that sound of water or like a little fountain, it's okay to consider putting something into a landscape like that, creating a little relaxation area where you can just go hang out, read a book, and have that soothing sound of water trickling nearby. Outdoor living spaces. One thing always that I encourage people is, spend your money on the hardscape. This is pretty amazing here. You have an outdoor fireplace and an oven out there. I mean, it's pretty great. But once again, having something like this, it is an investment. It does it will bring up the value, of course, of the property. And you can see how beautiful this looks. These outdoor living spaces, utilizing that area. A lot that I see is, most of us with front yard areas, we invest so much time and effort out there, but they hardly get used. So why not, convert that to something that's more water friendly. So, hardscapes, they don't require any maintenance as far as major maintenance, but, and once again, try to keep it permeable. Edible gardens, who loves edible gardening? Now, throughout the year, we do have other workshops, and this coming up year, towards the spring, I like to have a edible gardening workshop that is hosted by the Master Gardeners of Orange County. So please just look out for those types of workshops coming up. I know we have some workshops I'm going to be talking about later that are coming up this coming up year. So, well, look at this beautiful living fence in that small little picture here. Here we have a nice living fence, and this is, you can use apple trees or pear trees to create this nice living fence of edible fruit. Look at these big, giant vegetable beds out there. But, one thing about vegetable gardening, when it's something this much, edible gardens do require water, but it's very specific times, whether it's fruit trees or vegetable gardens. So, and this is also good use of water, right? Because you're going to be utilizing that material, whether it's eating it, giving it to friends, and so forth. So, one thing to always be conscious of is, consider, doing the watershed approach. And, what is the watershed approach? It's basically, trying to create the most sustainable landscape as possible. Creating a healthy soil by allowing more organics, utilizing less pesticides and chemicals out there. Capture that rainwater and use it as a resource, whether you use rain barrels or any kind of other catchment. Use the climate appropriate plants, natives hopefully more, but there are also, once again, plants from all around the world that do well in our area. Efficient irrigation. We are going to be having a workshop in December that's strictly on irrigation and trying to make it as efficient as possible. But irrigation systems can be very inefficient, and they can waste lots of water if we don't look after them. The watershed approach, we create this little local ecosystems. Of course, we're protecting our overall watershed all the way around us, and we want to keep that water on our sites and prevent it from running off into other areas, because they could be carrying pollutants and other stuff that we don't want into our storm drains and out to our creeks and rivers, streams, and then to our ocean, just polluting everything. So once again, we want to try to keep that water on site. I can't say enough about taking care of our planting areas. Mulch is one of our best friends that we have out there in the landscape. All plants and soil will benefit of it. And it's one thing about having a nice layer of mulch out there between our plantings, it's, yes, it's going to retain a lot of that soil moisture. It also will bring down the temperature of that soil, so it doesn't get as hot. When you have bare soil out there, it's going to get cooked. It's going to dry out faster. A lot of the water is going to evaporate out. Of course, it'll help control weeds. But here's a little tip. If you want to control the weeds a little more, instead of using just a synthetic weed barrier, Utilize get good old black and white newspaper and put some layers of newspaper after you're done weeding, and just puts that mulch right on top. Now, one thing about there is a lot of beneficial living organisms, whether they're insects and stuff out there, and sure, there's going to be some insects out there, some bugs that might want to eat certain plants, but that's why it's important to sometimes really consider going native, going with native plants that'll bring in beneficial insects, beneficial predators that'll take care of a lot of the pests that we don't like in the landscape. But also there's easy eco-friendly pest control things that we can do in our landscapes to try to avoid using harsh chemicals. The benefit of mulch, of course, is as it breaks down, it also becomes part of your soil and starts becoming part of that organic matter in our soils, which is great. Another thing about our landscape is actually that rainwater. If you don't have any rain barrels or anything, deter those gutters into the landscape. Have them flow right into the landscape, and that's one of those things when we're looking at the watershed approach in landscaping is we start to create little areas of to capture, whether it's stormwater or irrigation water in general. Now this year, so far, it's been a little dry. We've been getting a little showers depending on where you're at, but hopefully we do get some showers this year, and that'll help us with our planting season. But if not, we might have to be our own irrigation or water out there. So let's see. Here we go. Oh, great. So another thing about, creating basins, swales, and rain gardens in our landscapes to collect that water. It also adds a nice little visual effect, having a nice little dry creek or stream in your landscape. But once again, making it so it's able to catch that water and utilize it. Here we have a beautiful contoured landscape, a dry creek. This is actually a nice dry pond, as you can see. It is an investment with all that stone there, but the plant material is very water friendly. This looks like a nice mix of natives and non-native species, but there's things that you can do. You can actually do that, but we really try to encourage people to practice what we call hydrozoning, is grouping plants with similar water needs and similar habits, growing habits and water habits throughout together in different areas. Creating rock gardens, once again, it's a way to utilize our land. Here's some more swales you can create in the landscape. Okay, let's see. So now we are at the plant characteristic. So, when it comes to looking at plants, as you can see, we get into plants right away and start talking about this plant or the other plant, but we really got to start thinking about what we want. Why, what kind of plants do we want out there? Do we want evergreen plants? Do we want deciduous plants? I love planting some deciduous plants out there that go bare, exposes that beautiful branching structure and allows that light to filter down into maybe some other plants that you have underneath. Or do you want something just to be green year round and have some evergreen plants out there? Different trees, shrubs, ground covers, they all add to our landscapes in different ways, whether it be more of a focal point or a feature. This is when we start looking at more traditional landscape design, but I also like to use California native plants in the traditional sense as far as landscaping goes. Having borders and background plantings, ground covers, main focal points, and trees. And you can see I started to put some of the plant names on some of these pictures now. Once again, but if you notice these names on here, these are the scientific names of the plants, and there's a little section we're going to get into on the importance of trying to learn these scientific names and how important it is out there, especially when you're going to look for plants and utilizing these names when looking for plant material. Perennials, annuals, biennials. Just, how are they growing? When do they flower? Do they flower every other year? Are they going to be flowering constantly throughout the year? Are they going to just disappear and then come back the next year? Those are always things that we got to consider when we're out there selecting plants. I mean, I look at all these pictures, one of my favorite plants is, you're looking at it right there to the left. It's called Chicostoma lanatum, which is woolly blue curls. It also has a common name of California rosemary. It is a gorgeous plant. It's evergreen. Once those flowers are done, you just, deadhead it, and it's going to stay nice and green. Absolutely hates summer water. You just leave that alone. If you are going to give it a splash, give it one quick splash, if that. But mine are doing excellent. I've had them for years, and just what a gorgeous plant. So we'll take a look at that a little bit later, where to find them. What other uses are the plants for? This is more, start getting into the design features of them, of using mounting plants, prostate plants, spreading plants, just how you're going to put them in the landscape. But one thing about any of these forms, as far as plants goes, is, do you have enough room for them? Size, growing habits are very, very important. How big do these plants get? How do they spread? How much are they going to spread? Are they going to start getting too close to each other? Am I going to start to have to prune them harder? So it's always important to consider those plants at full growth. How big is this plant going to get? Do I have enough room? And how many am I going to need, of course? Who doesn't love flowering plants? I mean, color association is a big thing. One thing I know, that wall colors, the yellows, the reds, the oranges, they pop. They just, when they go into bloom, you notice that. And what a good way to bring in that flower color into the landscape. And there's also the cooler colors, which kind of, you can use them as backgrounds or small little highlights in general. So the greens, the blues, the violets, the whites. I mean, once again, this has to do a lot with design, but just overall, it's important to consider, the colors in your landscape and how they're going to change throughout the year. And with that said, when you're looking at plants, this chart here, I just put this chart here just to show you on things that you can do if you're really interested in blooming periods. Start making your list of when these plants are going to bloom, so you have that year-round change throughout the landscape. Foliage, the leaves themselves, what kind of, you have all these interesting colors when it comes to plant material as well. The greens, the grays, the blues, the reds, the variegated speckle. I mean, you can see here, there's pictures here, just, you have beautiful foliage coming from different plants, and how they are, as far as, I could say if they're coarse or they're very fine. It's more like texturing of plants, but you have a big selection of plants that you can choose out there, and not just have just a green matted landscape. And seasonal change, what are these plants going to do during the fall months? And this is what's going on right now with a lot of our, they're going through fall color. So I'm having things that change seasonal foliage colors. I mean, that's another attractiveness to plants. Here we have ginkgo to the left. To the right, that is Vitis californica. That is our California wild grape. And that's actually a cultivated one called Rogers Red. So that whole green vine will turn bright red. As you can see, it's starting to change red, and then it'll just drop everything and just be nice little vines out there. Oh, earlier I was talking about scale and proportion. One thing is, always look at those little labels on the plants, do a little research on these plants, and allow them to grow in as natural as possible. One thing I really hate to see is plants pruned up into little balls and squares and shapes. I like it to grow in a little more natural, and but for it to grow natural, you really need that room. And a lot of these pictures you're seeing are plants that are found throughout California that are very, very common. So, yeah, here's a big one, you guys. Roots. What are those roots going to do? I've been to many properties where sometimes I kind of cringe because I see a ficus planted, a foot away from the house, or right next to an expensive pool or walkway. I saw one design where they put in California redwoods in a planter bed right next to a pool. And I mean, it's like, wow, when you start looking, how big are these plants going to get? What are they going to do? How are they going to stretch? This right here, you're looking at the ficus roots. I love ficuses. I love ficuses in pots. And as long as you keep them far away from your house, and I just leave them in my pots. They like to get girdled, and they get huge, and they do very, very well. But always, one thing when you're looking at plants is, take time to do a little bit of that research on the growing habits. How tall is it going to get? How is it going to spread? Does it produce seeds? Is it going to drop leaf litter? When does it flower? How are the roots going to do? It goes a long way, so you don't make any errors in purchasing plants. Right now, here comes the Christmas holidays, and I know a plant that gets sold quite a bit is the star pines. They come in these nice little pots, and then people use them as little Christmas trees or decorative, and then they plant them out, in their landscape afterwards. And the star pine, 50, 60 feet tall, have a 30, 40-foot spread. So you got to be very, very careful on what you do with this. Let's see. There's been some great questions coming in. I can see them coming in, and I'll make sure to be able to address them a little bit later on. I think we're moving at a good pace, so let's just keep going through. Creating your plant list. Now, California, our Mediterranean climate, the good thing is that most of us, I would figure all of us, if you have a landscape when you moved into your house and it was already put in, most of the plants in your landscape are already what we call, water thrifty. If it's a shrub, they've been in there for a while, they require 50% of the water that a grass area would require. So that when we start getting to that mark, like, moderate water user plants, that's what we call a water-friendly plant material. If you have Raphaelepis indica out there, some Indian hawthorns, arbutus, just a lot of plants out there that already utilize the landscape, pretty water-friendly, but we can get even better. The right plants for our climate, what are California-friendly or drought-tolerant plants or climate-appropriate plants? Is there a difference? Yes, there is a difference. One thing, when we look at our California Mediterranean climate, we can utilize plants from all these other different regions that share a similar climate to us, the Mediterranean basin, like Chile, Western Cape, like Africa, South Australia. You can see all these little regions are all plants that'll do great from all around the world in California. So we have this beautiful, arid, coastal, woodland, just climate. We are not a desert. But we do have deserts in California, but we also have so many beautiful other regions that we always got to be aware of. This is right out of Western Garden Book. If you do notice, this is kind of textbook, but here's Irvine. Here we're kind of situated in this beautiful. We get the coastal influences. We have the foothills here. We're in this nice little climate zone, 22 to 24, which is perfect for a lot of plants that they're commonly used in our landscape. Now, California-friendly plants, they're climate-appropriate plants from all around the world that are easy to adapt to here in California, Southern California. They are moderate water users. They do need that summer water. Now, when it comes to California native plants, there's such a diversity here in California. It's important to select the right ones for our areas, because sometimes maybe some desert species won't do good in our areas. We can manipulate some of these natives to do well in our area, but it's important to really consider using localized plants if possible. And I'm going to show you guys a nice little trick in a while on how to find these plants. Now, when it comes to native plants, it's really important to educate yourself a little bit about our plant communities. Irvine and surrounding cities have what we call a coastal sage scrub community. Plants adapted to our conditions, similar requirements. Let's see. Now, California native plants, they grow here naturally. They've co-evolved here with animals and fungi and microbes. Natives build habitat for pollinators. The best thing about this bullet point number 4 is they're fully or partially summer dormant. That's one thing when it comes to native plants, is to do a little research on them, and and learn more about when they require that water. I know my native area, I love all types of plants, and my landscape is a mixture of everything, but it's all kept in these different hydrozones. All my natives are all together in certain areas, and I know that that this past summer, I watered my natives about once a month. I gave them a good splash on the cooler days. We went to that hot spell. Of course, in the hot spell, just left them alone. But when the days were cool, when the nights were cool, I went out there and gave them a quick rinse down and a quick splash of water. But that's the best thing about them. Once they're established, they require little or no supplemental water beyond annual rainfall. This is ceanothus. They're one type of California lilac. There are low-growing varieties, and there are big varieties too. So, if I saw a question come in about this plant, which I do love. So, once again, our natives are well adapted to our area. There are hundreds of local native plants, and once again, we are creating a nice habitat for all our beneficial pollinators, insects, birds, you name it. Gorgeous plants, salvias. This right here, Heteromeles arboretifolium, toyon. It's a great plant for these months because it actually has a name of Christmas berry. And toyon it looks a little similar to holly bushes, and they say that Hollywood was named after these native shrubs that are all over our hillsides because they look like holly bushes, but they're actually our beautiful native toyons. This is lemonade berry, Russell tickerfolia, and some more ceanothus there. Now, once again, not every single California native plant is completely drought tolerant. It's about learning a little bit about them, the environments they live in, and how can we utilize them in our landscapes. To make our landscapes look a lot beautiful and use very little water. So, I really can't say enough to go out there, get online, and do a little research on these plants. Now, this graph here is just, I'm going to show you something. So the first bars that popped up, this is what we measure. This is basically water loss. We call it ETO, big old line, long name, evapotranspiration, and that just basically means water that is lost through the plant, that goes through the roots and out the plant. That is transpiration that goes out the pores, and then there's also water loss through evaporation, whether from the soil or on top of the plants. And we take those and we can actually measure it. So, here we go. So this is one of our weather station data. So this is our central weather station. As you can see, this is measuring how much water grass loses throughout the year. And this is important. You see that nice little bell curve, we call it? This is how we should be watering throughout the year. There's our rain pattern. So when we have a good rainy season, wow, that's what we usually see in California. This is how much water grass needs throughout the year to keep it healthy. You can see it's a pretty big number. Probably not pretty, it's just follows that curve. As you can see, it's pretty high as far as water use. We never give back exactly what it lost. We only give it back enough to make it look aesthetically acceptable, basically. Now, climate appropriate plants, when you start to use climate appropriate plants, you can see that bell curve there. They do require, so, once June hits, this is when we usually start picking up our water use here. And right now is, September hits, we should be down about 30%. Yes, it might be warm still, but the day getting shorter. Plants know this, they start to shut themselves down. And then October, November, now we should be really, really down here. So make sure that you look at your sprinkler timers and get those times down. Now, what did the natives do? Let's look at what the natives like as far as water. As you can see, our California native plants follow that rain bell curve. So as our climate appropriate, our plants, Mediterranean plants, require water in the summer, our natives are starting to go down as far as needing that water. Their water use really, really shrinks down. So this is why, if you select the right plants, once again, look, no supplemental water throughout these months. Like I said, for myself, I gave them a good splash, maybe once a month during this time period. And now they're going to start waking up soon. And it's time to, hopefully the rains come in and help us out. Once again, hydrozoning, key term, but, important to consider grouping these plants with similar needs all together. Now, somebody did bring this up on the importance of utilizing these scientific names. So, the scientific names or botanical names. Now, here I put, there's some information on genus and species and how these plants are named. So, but if, typically if you go out and you ask for a plant by common name, you might get what you're asking for, but you might not, because common names, they change from country to country, region, even just culturally. If I said, okay, I want a mock orange, most of the time, you might get Pittosporum tuberii. You might get simple Pittosporum, which is great. It's a nice plant. It is a water-friendly plant, medium water use plant. But myself, I wasn't looking for this. I was looking for Philadelphus lewisii, which is our California native. As you can see, there's gorgeous shrub. So, once again, if I were to ask for Philadelphus lewisii, I would get exactly this. Now, these botanical names, as you can see here, the genus is always capitalized, and of course, species is lowercase. But let's look at the species. Usually refers to a place where the plant is native to, the plant's appearance, or the name of the person that's credited to discovering it. Now, this plant was written down in this famous person's little notepad on when he saw this out in the wild, and it's during the Lewis and Clark expedition. Philadelphus lewisii. Now, what about when the species change? Now, the species, once again, tells us a lot about the plant, whether it's from, who found it, how it's cultivated, and so forth. Or how it's, so let's see. So here we have Rosa californica. I know that by the name, this is our beautiful California native wild rose. Rosa floribunda to the right. This is telling me that, yes, this is a rose. This is a rose. Floribunda. Flori means flower. Bunda means abundant. So it's telling me that it does bloom profusely, as you can see here. And I love iceberg roses. It's that fragrance alone. And here we have the cultivated name, iceberg. Now, one thing about roses, you guys remember, roses are they're a water-friendly plant. They're very drought tolerant. One thing about roses is you want to water them deeply, but infrequently. Now, here's some plant names, some different cultivars. Here's Raphaelepis indica. So when we look at cultivated species, here we have the genus and species, but this is the cultivated name. So this is something that was hybridized for us to purchase. Very easy to find all these. I love pink ladies. This is Clara. So if you like the Indian hawthorn, but with a white flower, different leaf a little bit. Here we have Clara. And there's also Majestic Beauty, which makes a beautiful small tree. So you have different cultivars of this same genus and species plant. And the common one is the simple Indian hawthorn, which you see out there quite a bit. Now, what's the difference between cultivar and variety? Well, a variety just naturally happens out in nature. It's a cultivar, yes, but it's just a naturally occurring, cultivated a variety of that plant. So here we have, now this is forest pansy redbud. We actually have a native redbud, which is Cercis occidentalis, which is our California redbud. This is Cercis canadensis, or the eastern redbud, but this is a cultivar called forest pansy. I'm sure you've seen this out there in landscapes quite a bit. And here we have another eastern redbud, but this is Cercis canadensis, variety alba. So this one happened out in nature just to grow with white bloom. It's actually grown now by cuttings, and it actually kept its true form. This is the white eastern redbud, which just sounds pretty funny, but what a gorgeous plant, what a gorgeous shrub or small tree. Okay, so let's see. We are moving at a good pace. Let's keep going. So one thing about these workshops is, I always get asked, well, can you provide some plant lists, or are we going to look at plants? And, I created these small little plant palettes for everybody. And, once again, this is going to be recorded. It's going to be going on a handout, but, these are all plants that are easy to find if you want to go native. Now trees, as far as these trees go, like Chalopsis linearis, this is the desert willow. Well, I love desert willow. Actually, I have one planted right in front of my house out in my front area. I love it because it's going to start to go deciduous, opening up that beautiful branching structure. And, once it starts to bloom in the spring, it just keeps going and going and going into the fall. What a gorgeous, gorgeous, now you can call it shrub tree, but just does really, really well in the landscape. Here's our heteromeles are beautiful, our toyon. It's actually a big giant shrub that you can make it into a small tree. And then of course I put a bunch of other shrubs, whether it's ceanothus, the bush poppy, Dendromeca rigida, some sticky monkey flower, mimulus, some rhamnus, some coffee berries, salvias. This is apricot mallow right here. I love it. It's gorgeous. Here's the seaside daisies over here. This is as far as ground cover goes, seaside daisies, some red buckwheat. So all very easy to find California native plants that'll make your landscape pop. And what a beautiful, beautiful landscape you can have, which is a simple little plant palette. Here's a home that's been landscaped in California native plants. Now here is a plant list. These are all climate appropriate plants, but these are non-native species that are once again easy to find in any garden store. Most of them aren't anywhere. Earlier we saw a picture of the eastern redbud. This is Arbutus marina. I love marina because it has that peely red bark. It almost looks like a trying to think. We do have a native Arbutus menzii, but this is a gorgeous one that almost has that appearance, kind of like a I can't think of it now. Oh, like an Arctostaphylos, kind of like a manzanita. Manzanitas have beautiful red bark as well. Some rock roses here, Texas Ranger, heavenly bamboo, sweet pea bush, ground covers. This is blue fescue. Here we have up here on the top, we have creeping mirror plant. You can see easy plants to find, beautiful plant palette, very simple to find and put in your landscape. People always ask about bloomings. When do these plants bloom, or how can I look at blooming plants? So here are some here's a list of some nice winter bloomers, easy to find. Everything from the compact strawberry tree to the California golden currant, the rosemary, bush germanders. I mean, just you name it. There's some great winter bloomers, some spring into summer bloomers. I love the kangaroo pus, gorgeous. Some ceanothus, island bush poppies. Here's some fall bloomers. As you can see, I try to put in a lot of different plants in here, but once again, I was going through these lists, making sure that they were plants that are easy to find. Some ground covers and some lawn substitutes. Now we're going to get into some, people always ask about ground covers and lawn substitutes. So there's some stuff out there that's easy to grow that can give me that, as I call it, the green haze of a lawn appearance. So some people like to have just simple, plain grass out there, low that green haze, as I call it. But as you saw by those numbers earlier, how much water it takes to keep it green. Now, we can use even, the best thing is we have herbs for California gardens that we can use. Rosemary, oregano. They not only, can you use them as a landscape plant, but they're edible. You use them. It's great to have these in the landscape, and as you're working out there, you brush up against them. It allows that fragrance to just pop out through around your landscape. Now, be careful when it comes to plants. With any kind of plant you have. I like mint. Even just regular simple mint can be invasive because it can get out of hand. Here's an example of a plant that was used quite a bit about a long time ago, periwinkle. But why not consider using an alternative woodland strawberry? This is actually our native woodland strawberry plant that can actually be a great ground cover plant. Now, lawn substitutes. Now, you can see by this picture, synthetic grass. I mean, it's one of those things where I put it there. I don't like it. there's a lot of pros and cons when it comes to synthetic grass. So just if you are considering that, just do your research before installing that, or consider putting in, a live plant. Now, right now, one of the biggest plants that we see out there that's being marketed quite a bit is called Carapia. It's a hybridized plant that uses a third of the water that a grass uses. I mean, really, really great plant, very low water use, just amazing. I mean, this is being used everywhere, whether for ground covers, living walls, roofs, green roofs. I mean, you name it. It is kind of one of those miracle plants that's come on to the and yes, it is pet friendly. It is people friendly. So here is this. I found this customer. As I'm driving up to the house, I see that the house is green. I mean, the ground cover is green. And I'm going, wow, that's the greenest lawn in this whole block. And as you get closer and closer to it, I go, wow, that's not grass, it's something else. And as soon as I walked up, I knew what it was right off the bat. It was Carapia. And talking to the homeowner, he wanted to have this grass-like appearance, but he went with Carapia. Now, Carapia it's not a cheap plant. It can be found in sod, but I would recommend that if you're interested, take a look at it and plant it as plugs. And I'm going to show you a couple things. So here's this is actually the border between his house and the neighbor's house. You can see the neighbor's grass right up to that border, and next to this Carapia. Now, the Carapia takes foot traffic. It was not meant to be played on constantly, but you can picnic, you can walk on it, you can mow it. It just like it does get affected by animals when they come by, but just great. Now, if you want to look at this plant, this is actually a homeowner that had a landscape project, and they put Carapia in. You can see how fast it spreads. It was planted using plugs. Here is 3 weeks after the planting of the plugs. Here's 6 weeks, and here's 9 weeks after. Really, really quick as far as the coverage goes. Now, we recently planted it at the district. We have our demonstration gardens at our headquarters off of Sand Canyon. This is all water efficient landscapes in the back. Here we have a beautiful succulent garden. If you haven't seen, take time to go out and take a look at it. But in July, we did a planting of Carapia. So one thing about when you plant Carapia, it has to be done on bare ground, bare soil. You do not want to mulch it or anything. You plant it out there and you water it. And you can see here, this was planted in July. It started to spread quick. This is a picture from October, but I figure it was almost completely, since it was planted in the warmer months, it just really took off. By September, it was, almost completely filled in. There was a couple little hole patches here and there, but that's it. Once it's filled in, once you just edge it, you can mow it, you can cut it down, and it does great. I mean, if you just want to have that flat appearance, what a great thing to consider. There's also Diamondia. Diamondia gets used quite a bit as a ground cover. Creeping thyme. Okay, so let's see. So we are at a good pace. It is 12:50, you guys. So I want to just take you really quick to some online resources. So here we have this is our RightScapeResources.com website. Now, all these links and all these sites are going to be emailing everybody, so do not worry. But once again, this isn't our presentation. But our RightScapeResources.com website is a great, I call it our gardening or landscaping site that has a great plant search. Not only that, you can take tours and look at different galleries of plants. If you see something you like, you can click on it. You can click on here. You can see what these plants are. You can add them to your plant list. One thing I really love about this site is you can do a plant search, a guided search. You click on here, and you can actually start looking for specifics. Let's see, I want perennials. They will be in full sun. I want them 1 to 3 feet. If you want a specific flower color, you can go here, but if not, select any. What type of soil do I have? Maybe some clay. And if you want them to bloom in a specific year, you can, but I'm going to select any here. And here we go. So it just popped a nice list of plants that fall under our criteria. If they have this nice little logo here, it is a native, which is great. And you can click on it and add it to your plant list. Here you go. Now, one thing, after you're spending time on here and hours, is just checking on these plants and add them to your list. When you go to my list here, it's not going to look too dramatic here, but when you go to my list, you can actually start printing these reports out, whether it's the plants or the gardens. You can start printing them out or just basically it's going to just shoot you out a nice PDF of that plant. And basically what it'll do, it'll start to group these plants into these different water categories. So, which is pretty cool. I really like that feature on this site. If you're considering natives, I can't stress enough to go to not ours, but this is the California Native Plant Society's HOUSEKEEPING.org website, where you can type in your zip code. So I'm going to put in the district zip code, Sand Canyon, and good old, let's see, so Sand Canyon, I believe it's Avenue, Irvine, California. Here we go. So once you put in your zip code, your address, basically what it's going to do, it's going to pinpoint all the plants that are native to your spot. So it's telling me that here on this little spot on this beautiful planet in our beautiful state in Irvine, okay, just took me back. There we go. So there are 527 native plants that are native to this unique area. And you can look at them either by trees, shrubs, perennials, succulents, grasses, and as you can see here, just groups them all together. Or you can just do one big mass search. Oh, this went to a different, I think this pointed at a different address, but it is in Irvine. So here's an address, and here are the plants that are native to this area. So another great plant search here. To look at or to educate yourself on native plants, there is Tree of Life Nursery, which is right here in San Juan Capistrano. You can look at their inventory list. Here's another great native plant nursery. This is Silmar, so nice little drive, but what a beautiful. I go to Theodore Payne. I live out of the Irvine areas, but this is my nursery where I go to find some native plants, and what a great selection. And all these sites on native plants, there's great information. Theodore Payne on growing, planting, watering. You just you can't go wrong when you're looking or trying to do a little research of native plants. And one of my favorite other nurseries is Las Plitas Nursery. This is in Santa Margarita, but one thing I love the website for is there's a lot of information on California natives, where if you really want to learn a little bit about them, you can look at the different communities. As far as the plant communities go, this talks about each plant community, habitats for California. You can actually look at different zip codes and see what plant community you fall under. And most likely you're going to fall under this coastal sage scrub plant community, where you can learn a little about this plant community, what'll do well, soils and so forth. Just a great overall site. Okay, let's get back to the presentation and finish this up. So earlier I was saying we are in planting season. So when to plant? Right now, here we go. Planting season has begun. Late fall through winter is the best time for planting. And this is to get our plants into the ground. Hopefully we get the rain coming in. That'll help those roots start to stretch out before the oncoming of spring and growth. Because once spring starts to arrive, the plants will start to shoot out green growth. And depending on that root structure, if it's not really there to support that green growth coming in, sometimes plants will start to struggle. But can we plant in the spring? Yes, but just know that the closer you start to plant to summer, you're going to start watering more. So right now is the ideal time to really start thinking of our planting, whether they be natives or non-native species. Just really start considering getting those plants in right this time. So let's start looking at plants to use. I put a little information here on most trees and shrubs, but for those of you who like some fruit trees, some citrus or bougainvilleas. Once again, a little research goes a long way. Subtropical plants, they want to wait till it gets a lot warmer before you start to plant these. Now this is just textbooks, you guys, about planting guidelines, about digging the hole, 2.5 times wider. And one thing is, I do not like to mess with the root ball when I'm planting. I usually try to get it out of that pot as easy as carefully as possible and plant it. I like how they're using the shovel there to know where the level ground is at, because whatever plant you are planting, you always got to remember to protect that collar, which is right here. You want to protect that collar, and you don't want to bury it beyond that. You don't want to have that out of the ground as well. You want to make sure, remember, just note that it is going to settle down a little bit. And, when you're out there mulching, try to keep a lot of that mulch and everything away from against that plant. So protect that collar always, the plant. If you do need to stake your plants or a tree, I like the 2-stake method, and it's supposed to be not tight enough where it's not going to move, because the more that tree is able to move, that's just there for support. It's going to get stronger and stronger. And if you can leave more branches down in the lower part of the tree, it's going to create that girth and that trunk a little more. And you can always prune away. So, when you plant small, and one thing also I forget to mention is just plant small. Plant in 1 gallons, 5 gallons. The bigger the plants are in those pots, they've been acclimated to that nursery or that conditioning, they'll stunt a little bit. But when you plant small, 1 gallons, 5 gallons, those roots are just attached to that soil and just pop out, and it'll give you a stronger plant when you do plant small. Before planting, you can pre-soak your root balls. You can use some compost tea or some worm tea if you wanted to. Fertilizing, benefit or not, some people like to stick some fertilizer into that ground, into the digging hole. Just note that phosphorus is for root development and for flowers. So you can have something like bone meal. Try to go with an organic fertilizer, some bone meal. Blood meal is really high in nitrogen, but that's going to make the plant push out green. You really want it to push out roots. So if you are going to use some organic fertilizer, you can get something out there with a higher phosphorus than nitrogen, and some good potassium out there just for some strong, healthy plant cells. Okay, so we are down to the end. So just really quick, we do have some great rebate programs going on right now. We do have our turf removal program. There's specific caveats that have to be met with any of these programs. So if you're interested in any rebate program, make sure to go to our website and read those terms and conditions and requirements for these programs, especially if you're considering removing your grass and putting in a water-friendly landscape. Make sure you apply up first, take pictures, measures, do whatever the site says, because I would hate for you to do the job and then apply for the program, because this is a regional program, and projects that already got started or will not qualify for the rebate. So make sure to read the fine print always with any kind of incentive program. But if you need assistance, you can always email us, and we will try to explain or get you as much information as possible. You can go to our RightScapeNow.com website to find information on rebates. You can of course go to our IRWD.com website, and they all take you to the right information. And the rebate amounts on our page is what we provide as far as incentives. So sometimes those links take you to different pages or application sites that might have a different incentive amount, but just whatever our site says is what you're going to be getting as far as incentives go. We do have other workshops coming up. So in December, we have our sprinkler spruce up workshop. In January, so we are doing, this is a Master Gardener workshop. It's called a BA GSI, Garden Scene Investigator. So this is all going to be about going online and doing some research and looking for answers to a lot of our gardening questions. It's a fun workshop. And then in February, I love to have our Turf Be Gone workshop. So you can sign up now, but be on the lookout. Oh, here we go. That's me right there, you guys. So if you have any questions, you can also email me at askjuan@irwd.com. RightScape.com. Yeah, I get the most interesting questions all the time, but yeah, just any questions, feel free to just email me. And of course, here is our information for our district. Here's our IRWD.com website, RightScapeNow.com. Of course, you can also email us at info@IRWD.com, and I'll go to get responded by customer service, so they'll forward it off to the appropriate departments. And of course, our number there. Wow. So wow, this class is, I think this went a little bit over, but if you're still here, thank you for staying with us. If you want to stick around, let's Joey, are you still out there, Joey?
Hey Juan, I'm still here.
Hey, there we go, you guys. So let's go through just a couple of questions. Now, once again, you guys, we went through this kind of quick. If you're still here and you have some questions, pop them into the chat. But Joe, you have anything off the top? Maybe a couple of questions, but I am going to be answering all the questions that were submitted in the email, so you will be getting that. So once again, thank you for joining us. And if you can't stick around for a few minutes right now, I want to thank you overall for attending the workshop. All right, Joe, you have anything for me?
Yeah, we got a couple of things. So the first kind of group of questions has to deal with soils. How do I know what type of soil I have, and how do I make my soil healthy because I have a lot of bugs that eat my plants?
Oh, okay. Soils is always one of those tricky things, because yeah, it's hard to know, unless you get a soil test done, and there are soil test kits that you can get. I think I went to Armstrong's that had a soil test kit there where you take soil samples and you send them off to a lab, and you're going to get a big giant report on what you have or what the soil is lacking and stuff like that. Just keep it simple. One thing I'm a big believer in is compost. I love using compost. If you want to build up your soils, get some compost and put it out in your landscape, and get a nice little garden clog. Just try to rake it in as best as possible. If you're going to start from scratch, and you can always do a big, amend that area completely. But if you just want to just create or just work with what you have, once again, compost is always the best additive, whether it's sandy soil or clay soil. You want to just make sure you get that material in and dig it in. Um, that's one thing. When it comes to pests, one thing is there's pests all over the place. Sometimes a lot of the pest issues can be caused by just your sprinklers. The spray heads are in those areas. They create a lot of misting and a perfect environment, humidity for certain pests to thrive. So consider changing up the watering practices. It's nice for plants, but also too is just keeping a clean area. Trying to get rid of certain vector points for other insects that might attack your plants. But sometimes we have to just deal with what we have. I know that sometimes I get plants chewing up. I mean, not plants, insects chewing up my plants, and I have to go out there and and just practice some good eco-friendly pest management. As far as try to cut it out, wash it off. Create a nice little eco-friendly soap and oil solution, and with some water, and spray it out there. On the leaves, and brush them away with your hands. I mean, it's I do not use any harsh chemicals out in my landscape. I try to just take care of things by hand as best as possible. Yeah, so that's always, I think that's the only thing I can really say about taking care of your soil. Is just try to add some more organics as far as compost and pests. If you need to do pest control, just once again try to practice some good eco-friendly pest management practices. I'm going to be putting some links in the emails to everybody on some information you guys can utilize as far as pest management goes.
Great. And kind of pertaining to the rainy seasons that's coming along,
Yeah.
I have some questions about planting strategies for slopes and keeping back mulch and erosion control.
Yeah, slopes are always the trickiest thing. I don't think personally I've ever had to deal with the slope. It's, you try to plant material out there for erosion control. There's a lot of great plants. There's great native plants But it's always important to space them out properly. Um, a lot of people like to put some kind of juke out there on the slope sides to keep them from eroding away. It's hard, One thing, like anything else, is maybe consult with a professional landscape company and ask questions about slope control and what they do to maintain those slopes. That's always the best thing. Once again, I don't have a lot of experience working on slopes, but the ideal thing is, yeah, you want to try to prevent that erosion. You can utilize plant material, but you can also utilize like some fabrics and so forth. But I'm not a big believer in using synthetic fabrics. You can always look for uh, something that's more organic as far as a slope cover, and then utilizing some kind of mulch or material to try to prevent that. Yeah, but slopes are a little tricky. And once again, I would just consult with a professional landscape company for that.
Great, thanks, Juan. And then kind of the last one is actually having to do with Carapia.
Yeah.
They're asking if it's shade tolerant and if it works well with citrus trees. But maybe that's something you can add in for the emails and the .com for
Yeah.
Carapia.
Yeah, and Carapia, just the one thing I know, and it's not the very, very best thing. It doesn't work well. That's shady areas. Full shade, I would say no. Filtered light, shady areas. There might be some information on that. But one thing is, a lot of these vendors for the Carapia, you can contact them, and they have the best answers. They will get back to you. Okay. With that said, once again, I'd like to thank everybody that stuck around for the workshop. If you do have time, please join us in next month, December. I can't believe it's December, end of the year already, Joe. You're crazy. Join us for our sprinkler spruce up, where we're going to get into sprinklers and smart technologies and all that cool stuff that you might be hearing about already. And then we're going to start off the new year with some good information from the master gardeners, and then start getting back into hopefully some turf removal. But thank you, Joey. Thank you, Melody, for helping us out today, and thank you everybody for joining us. And hopefully we'll see you at an upcoming workshop. Thanks, everybody.